Imagine waking up one morning, and realizing that everything you've worked for is gone, your job, your money, your home. Even the people you trusted. What would you do? Would you give up, or would you start again? This is the story of Daniel, a young man who lost almost everything in just 1 week, but what happened next taught him a lesson he would never forget. Sometimes losing everything is not the end of your story. Sometimes, it is the beginning of a new one. Let's begin. Part 1, Daniel's Happy Life. Daniel was 28 years old. He lived in a small but beautiful town with his wife, Emma, and their young daughter, Lily. Daniel worked at a small furniture company. He wasn't rich, but he was happy. Every morning, he woke up at 6 o'clock, he had breakfast with his family, went to work, and came home in the evening. He loved his simple life. One evening, Daniel sat at the dinner table with Emma and Lily. Lily looked at her father and said, "Dad, when I grow up, I want to have a house like ours." Daniel laughed. "Why?" "Because our house is beautiful." Daniel looked around the small room. The furniture was old, the walls needed painting. The kitchen was very small, but Lily didn't care. To her, it was home. Daniel smiled and said, "As long as we're together, we have everything we need." At that moment, Daniel believed his life was secure. He had no idea how quickly everything could change. Part 2, The Bad News. One Monday morning, Daniel arrived at work as usual, but something felt different. People were standing quietly in the office. His manager asked everyone to come into a meeting room. Daniel sat down. The manager looked nervous. Then he said, "I'm sorry, everyone. The company is closing." Nobody spoke. Daniel couldn't believe what he had heard. "What about our jobs?" someone asked. The manager lowered his head. "I'm afraid there are no jobs anymore." Daniel walked home that evening with a heavy heart. When he entered the house, Emma immediately noticed something was wrong. What happened? Daniel sat down. "I lost my job." Emma was silent for a moment. Then she held his hand. "We'll find another one." Daniel nodded. He wanted to believe her, and he tried. For the next few weeks, Daniel applied for jobs every day. 10 applications, 20 applications. Then 50, but nobody hired him. His savings slowly disappeared. The bills continued to arrive, and Daniel became more worried every day. Part 3, Everything Falls Apart. One morning, Daniel opened his bank account. There was almost no money left. He stared at the screen, then he closed his eyes. What am I going to do? That same week, another problem appeared. The family couldn't pay the rent. Daniel spoke to the landlord. "I'm sorry. I just need a little more time." The landlord looked at him. "I understand, Daniel. But I also have bills to pay." Daniel knew there was nothing more he could say. A few days later, Daniel, Emma, and Lily packed their belongings. They left their home. Lily looked at her father. "Where are we going?" Daniel forced a smile. "We're going to Grandma's house for a while." But inside, he felt broken. His job was gone, his savings were gone, his home was gone, and he felt like he had failed his family. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat outside and looked at the dark sky. He whispered, "I've lost everything." For the first time in his life, Daniel wanted to give up. Part 4, One Small Decision. The next morning, Daniel woke up early. He walked into the kitchen. His mother was preparing breakfast. She looked at him and said, "Daniel, why are you sitting there?" "I don't know what to do." His mother placed a cup of tea in front of him. Then she said something simple, "You lost your job." "You didn't lose yourself." Daniel looked at her. She continued, "Money can disappear. Houses can disappear. Jobs can disappear. But your skills, your experience, and your ability to start again are still with you." Daniel didn't answer, but her words stayed in his mind. That morning, he made a decision. He would stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Instead, he would ask, "What can I do now?" It was a small change, but it changed everything. Part 5, Starting from Zero. Daniel had always been good at making furniture. His father had taught him how to work with wood when he was a teenager. He knew how to make tables, chairs, shelves, and small cabinets. So Daniel decided to start small, very small. He borrowed some basic tools from an old friend, then he found a small space behind his mother's house. It wasn't a real workshop, it was just an old storage room, but Daniel cleaned it, he repaired the walls, he organized his tools, then he made one small wooden table. He took a photograph of it and posted it online. For 2 days, nothing happened. 3 days, still nothing. Daniel almost gave up. Then, on the 4th day, his phone rang. A woman wanted to buy the table. Daniel couldn't believe it. "Really?" "Yes," she said. "I like your work." It wasn't a big order, but it was his first customer. Daniel delivered the table himself. When the woman gave him the money, he smiled. It wasn't much. But to Daniel, it meant everything. It was proof that he could start again. Part 6, The Difficult Journey. The next few months were not easy. Some days Daniel received orders, other days, he received nothing. Sometimes customers complained, sometimes he made mistakes. Sometimes the wood was damaged, sometimes he worked for 10 hours and earned very little. There were nights when he felt exhausted. One evening, Daniel looked at his small workshop and said, "Maybe I can't do this." Emma walked over to him. She smiled and said, "Do you remember what you told Lily?" Daniel looked confused. "What? You said that home isn't about the house. It's about the people inside it." Daniel smiled. Emma continued, "Maybe success is the same. It's not about where you start. It's about what you do with what you have." Daniel looked around his tiny workshop. He didn't have much, but he had his family, he had his skills, and he had another chance, so he continued. Part 7, The Breakthrough. 1 year later, something unexpected happened. A local cafe owner visited Daniel's workshop. He saw several wooden tables. "Did you make these?" Daniel nodded. "I need furniture for my new cafe," the man said. "Can you make 20 tables and 40 chairs?" Daniel's eyes became wide. 20 tables. 40 chairs. It was the biggest order he had ever received, but there was one problem. Daniel didn't have enough money to buy all the materials. For a moment, fear returned. Then he remembered his journey. He had already started with nothing. He could find a way. He spoke honestly with the customer. The customer agreed to pay part of the money in advance. Daniel bought the materials. Then he worked, every day, every evening. Sometimes until midnight. Emma helped him with paperwork. His mother helped with small tasks. Even Lily painted little signs for the workshop. After several weeks, the order was finished. The cafe owner was impressed. "This is excellent work." He gave Daniel the remaining payment. But something even better happened. He recommended Daniel to other cafe owners. Within months, Daniel had more customers. His small workshop became a real business. And slowly, his life began to change. Part 8, The Lesson. 3 years later, Daniel had his own furniture company. He had employees, he had a bigger workshop, and he finally had a beautiful home. One evening, Lily sat beside him. She was older now. She looked at her father and asked, "Dad, do you remember when we lost our house?" Daniel smiled, "Yes." "Were you scared?" Daniel thought for a moment. very scared. Then how did you become successful? Daniel looked at her and said. I didn't become successful because I never failed. I became successful because I didn't stay down after I failed. Lily smiled. Daniel continued. Never be afraid of starting again. You may lose money. You may lose a job. You may lose something you worked hard for. But as long as you don't lose your courage, you can rebuild your life. Final message. Maybe you're going through a difficult time right now. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe your business failed. Maybe you made a big mistake. Or maybe you simply feel like your life isn't moving forward. Remember Daniel. Losing everything doesn't mean your story is over. Sometimes, it means you're being given a chance to write a new chapter. You don't have to rebuild your entire life today. Just take one small step, learn one new skill, make one phone call, apply for one job, start one small project, try one more time. Because success doesn't always begin with a big opportunity. Sometimes, it begins with one small decision not to give up. And now I want to ask you, if you lost everything tomorrow, what would be the first thing you would do to start again? Write your answer in the comments. And if you're learning English, try answering in English, even if your sentence isn't perfect. That's how you improve. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more easy English stories, listening practice, and inspiring life lessons. And remember, you may lose everything you have, but never lose the belief that you can start again. See you in the next story.